Now then, Smash Bros MMA here again. What week are we on now? It's going to be week 8 or 9. Christmas week. Not a lot to talk about. No real news. So quick breakdown of last week's card. Some quick talks about the absolute paggering that myself and Jimbo Slice have taken at the hands of KDiggy on the verdict. And then just some of our end of the year pick awards. So as always, it's BigDawg joined by KDiggy and Jimbo Slice. Gentlemen, how are we on this glorious Tuesday night?
Feeling very festive over here, mate. It's feeling good. Good times.
I've got my lights up, got my decorations up. I'm feeling good. I've got the tinsel here that you can't see that on behind the door. You see that? It's a reindeer. It's a reindeer, mate.
I say I'm looking forward to
a BigDawg's Christmassy.
So I'm looking forward to seeing people again on the 25th, having interaction with other humans. But yeah,
seeing people in the flesh. Yeah.
Yes.
No. So we were having a bit of a discussion before hitting the red button here. Not a right lot going on in the news since Saturday. We normally record a bit later on in the week to fit in with everyone's schedules, but with it being Christmas Eve when we'd normally film, we've gone for a couple of days early, and there hasn't really been enough time. There hasn't been enough time for anything to happen, to be fair. The only thing of any real note that sticks out to me of anything newsworthy is the video that Dana White put on Twitter last night. About 4 minutes. Have you both seen it?
No,
I've seen highlights to it. I haven't seen it all.
But the long and short of it is him just saying "fuck you" to the media. A load of like names and clips and quotes from articles of people saying it's dangerous to do this now with COVID going on, and him just pretty much giving it all that. That's kind of the long and short of it for 4 minutes. I don't really understand why he made it, apart from to flex his ego. But yeah, bit of a dick move. To the point I contemplated putting him on the clown list. That's how much I didn't like the video. I thought about putting him on the clown list later on in the video, but I digress. I didn't. So Wonderboy Neal from the weekend. I thought it were a bloody good card. I thought there were some cracking fights on it. I stayed up. Don't normally stay up, but I stayed up and watched the full card. Thought it were great. Main event delivered. Some really, really kind of good fights, good results, some surprising results throughout the card. So, verdict picks. As I've already alluded to, KDiggy having a storming week in consideration of XP. When you look at the amount of fights he got right, it's not as storming as other people, but in the top 10% came 521st in the world. So pretty decent, to be fair. You know, some good numbers, and typically, as always, Jimbo Slice at the back of the pack. Consistency is key for the BigDawg. Coming middle of the ground, decent amount of XP. But yeah, fair cop, KDiggy. Do you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to find out, since we started doing this podcast, who's got the most XP. Not just who's doing it week in, week out, but who's got the cumulative amount. Because I think it'll probably be me, to be fair. Because like I said, consistency is key.
Well, I'm thinking from the new year, we start keeping a tally. We'll keep a tally of how many wins we've had. We'll keep a tally of how much XP we've got.
I'd be interested to see what happens. But yeah, we'll get straight into that verdict card then. Bear with me, I'll just get it up in front of me. But I did do the dirty on you boys on Saturday, because they took one of the fights off and swapped it with another one, and I didn't tell you. And I was just checking. I was on it and I didn't tell either of you. So I had the advantage on both of you. The first fight that they had as the pick, they removed the Gillian Robertson, Talia Santos card, which, to be honest with you, I'm quite happy they did.
Yeah.
Because I picked Robertson to win. The only one that had got anything there had been, Mystic KDiggy. But they replaced that with Sajada Eubanks, Paddy Kianzad. Like I said, nobody else got the picking on this but me, and I picked it bang on. I went for the Kianzad decision. I remembered it from the tough 28 days when she was on there as a women's featherweight. Eubanks moving up from flyweight, Kianzad coming down. I figured size. She's gonna out hustle her, and that's pretty much what happened. Got me some nice XP. Next fight, KDiggy. Talk us through it. Anthony Pettis, Alex Morono. What happened here?
It was an interesting fight, really. Going into it, I think we all went for. Did we all go for Morono, or did you go? You went for Pettis.
I
didn't you,
changed my
Jimbo?
pick.
You
My pick.
changed.
That's why I'd gone on to the verdicts, actually, because I'd changed my mind to go for an Anthony Pettis
Okay.
pick.
So I think we did have the majority going for Morono to begin with. Pettis has been on a bit of a slide recently. He's obviously beating Cowboy, but we just think he was at the end of the road, really, and Morono was sort of working his way up and could have made a bit of a splash. First round, I had it Morono winning the fight, but Pettis just showed he's a grizzly vet. He's been in there for 10 years, making magic in the octagon. And he just did it again, and he just absolutely dominated the next 2 rounds. And it was an easy 29-28 in the end. As much as I wanted Morono to get the victory, I couldn't see it any other way.
Bit of an interesting stat for you about Anthony Pettis here. This is the first time he's been on a winning streak since 2014. Since he had the title. Yeah,
I was going to bring that.
The first time he's been on a winning streak since he beat Gilbert Melendez to defend his title, which, when you think about it, it's baffling. And Jimbo Slice, I mean, where do you think Pettis goes from here?
I think this was his last fight in his contract. He goes and joins his brother. He goes and joins his brother at Bellator. And I don't think if he stays at welterweight, I don't think he's got a shot of winning the championship. I think Lima would have his number. But I think if he moves down to lightweight, I think he can add a fourth world championship to his wall from 4 different organisations. I think that's the way forward for him, to be honest. The Tony Ferguson rematch.
UFC. Who else?
He fought. Where did he fight before WEC? He won title. Looking at his career earlier, he was the world champion in another organisation before. Let me just think. Let me just check. He fought somewhere before he was in WEC.
You put him on the spot there, BigDawg.
You have, but I know I'm right.
The GFS Fight Club. Fuck off. That don't count.
He still had the title. But
oh yeah, you know what? When people think about the greats of premier MMA organisations, UFC, Bellator, WEC Pride, GFS. Did you even know what GFS was until you looked at Anthony Pettis' career earlier on?
I'd probably heard of it when I'd heard of other things. It's no Bama. Let's be honest. It's not even Bama worthy, is it? It's not even on the same level as that. But
R.I.P. By the way, R.I.P. Bama.
Yeah, R.I.P. Bama. Brett McDermott, final heavyweight champion, top lad.
Shout out Brett McDermott.
Yeah, shout out Brett McDermott. But to be honest, I was quite happy to see Pettis win, but I think he's off to Bellator, and I think he's off to 155 at Bellator.
I mean, he's already alluded to his next fight taking place in the lightweight division. And he has said, I was reading an article earlier on MMAfighting.com where he was kind of saying that, yeah, it's his last fight. He's just going to kind of wait and see what happens. He's not actively saying, I'm going to stay with UFC. He's not saying I'm going to shop around. I think he's going to see what people want to offer him. And for me, regardless of this being the first time he's been on a winning streak in 6 years, he's still a name that carries value because he was a champion. And when you look at who he's actually fought, aside from a couple of names, it's generally big boys in the divisions. It's not like he's losing to cans. He's losing to decent people. So I think he's still got a lot to give in the UFC. And I think he'd fit quite well into a gatekeeper role for that top tier of the division. It'd just be a question of
Can I counter
willing to pay him for that?
Can I just counter that? I agree. I think he could easily fit into being the top 10 and shake out in there in the welterweight division or the lightweight division. But I just want to counter with, I think his brother will be saying, look at all this money I'm making for easier competition. Come and join me over here.
That's a very harsh claim against Bellator.
Bellator, to be fair, bantamweight division is good, but do you know what I'm saying? Do you feel?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, if we went over there, we'd get that Benson Henderson rubber match, wouldn't we? And then he'd be fighting the Pitbull brother for the lightweight strap. But aside from them 2 fights, there's just nothing there for him. Whereas, I was just thinking what fight would I like him to see in the UFC, and I think rankings-wise it wouldn't really make a lot of sense, but I think him against Dan Hooker would be a bloody good fight. It's got potential to be a great fight, but like I said, rankings-wise, it just makes zero sense.
Hooker's on to bigger and better things than Anthony Pettis.
I know he is, and that's why I'm saying it makes zero sense, but I'd watch it. I think there's more. It's just a question of what does Pettis want to do and what does he want to be remembered for? Being a champion in Bellator or hanging around and being a mainstay in the UFC? And that's kind of the question, really, isn't it? What does he want to do? And only he can make that decision. So we'll have to wait and see what he says. So the next fight on the verdict, I think it's one that made me a very happy boy, a very, very happy boy, and that you two both got wrong. It is Marcin Tybura TKO in Greg Hardy in the second round. I'll talk you through this one, boys. So pretty much Hardy, first round, run of the mill, kind of what he does best, working his game. Second round, Tybura takes him down and absolutely pulverizes him, absolutely decimates him and completely exposes his lack of a ground game. I've been very critical of Greg Hardy throughout this podcast, throughout the episodes, and any time his name's been brought up, I am one to throw him promptly under the bus. However, I think this will be a kind of pivotal moment in his career and what he moves on to do from here, because his next fight is absolutely key. If they give him another bona fide grapple, someone who knows what they're doing, he needs to learn that element of the game. And if he can't up his ground game and his ability to work off the back, he's going to be done for the UFC as far as I'm concerned. He's good on the stand-up.
I was always worried. We'd had our podcast and I'd already made my choice for Greg Hardy, and then I saw a quote which said that he wants to fight Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, and then I just thought I shouldn't have picked this guy because he's deluded, and I think I'm a little bit deluded for choosing him. But it could have. He got pretty close in the first round, but his Marcin Tybura he's got a strong chin, even though it's been knocked a few times. It was a well-deserved victory.
I saw that article too, KDiggy, and I thought after I saw this, is this going to be on? Is Greg Hardy going to make the Big Dogs Clowns of the Year after I saw that article? I thought
I hadn't seen that article.
The much anticipated Clowns of the Year. But to be honest, it didn't make me a happy boy in verdict, but it made me a happy boy. First of all, Marcin Tybura getting his fourth win of 2020, 4 out of 4, and seeing Greg Hardy lose a man who, by all accounts, isn't a particularly nice man. It was just nice.
That was a very polite way of putting it, Jimbo.
I'd have put it a lot more bluntly, I think. But yeah. No, but from an athletic standpoint, Greg Hardy, he's physically gifted. He's a big boy. He's got power. He's got strength. And if he can put it together, I'd be very interested to see how far he can go in the UFC. But this is a pivotal moment for him. He needs to work on his ground game, and if he doesn't, he'll be gone very quickly. Next fight, one that we were all touting as a bit of an upset, bit of a dark horse pick. Rob Font, Marlon Moraes. We all got this right. Rob Font KOing Marlon in the first round. Me and Jimbo going purely for a Rob Font decision, but KDiggy going for that knockout. Talk us through it, KDiggy.
Yeah, originally I was with you guys and went for the decision, and then I look on my verdicts and I look down and I see BigDawg's got his wins in the bag, and I think, oh my god. And I'm watching the build up to the fight, and Rob Font is talking, and he's been out for a year. He's had his injuries, and there was fire in his eyes, and I think Marlon's just been he's just not been doing well for his past 3 fights. He's been such a disappointment. He's let me down. I've lost a lot of money on Marlon Moraes, and I just thought this could be worse than we expected here. And lo and behold, first round KO. Rob Font looks so good that fight, and it just opens up another huge big contender in that bantamweight division. It was really good.
I mean, he came straight out of the gate and called out Killershaw, didn't he? Asking for TJ upon his return from his drug suspension. I think that's a good fight, to be fair. I'd watch it. It's a really good fight to work out where Dillashaw is, gauge where he is, because I don't feel he can come back and get an immediate title shot. I think he needs to earn that title shot. And I think against a surging contender like Rob Font, it would be great. And Marlon Moraes, since moving to American Top Team, has 1 win and 2 losses. Where does he go from here, Jimbo Slice?
I believe it was a tweet I saw earlier, and it said Marlon Moraes' chin has done a Chuck Liddell. And I thought, yeah, it has. It feels like it has done a Chuck Liddell. It's just gone. Where I feel Marlon Moraes here is he's always a big bantamweight. He looks like it. Maybe he tests the water up at featherweight. He's a very muscular man. Put on a bit of flab. Build some strength up in your chin. Take some time off. That's the first thing I think he needs. Take some time off and get back to your grappling. Take some time off. Maybe move up. Maybe stay at bantamweight. I don't know. But I just want to mention Rob Font. Wow. He reminded me of, and I think he's a teammate. He looks very similar to Calvin Kattar with how he was fighting. And I think he's a teammate of Rob Font. I'm not certain. But those hands were beautiful. Beautiful hands. Just wanted to giving a big shout out to Rob Font. Means so much. But I just wanted to say, beautiful performance. And Moraes, get back to your grappling. Maybe move up. Take some time off, definitely.
I think the thing for me with Marlon is I was very concerned to see him fighting so soon after that Sandhagen knockout back in October, because it was a pretty nasty knockout. Like, it wasn't as if it was one punch you were wobbled a bit and it were called off. He were hit with an absolutely brutal spinning kick that put him down. You know, to come back so quick after that, you know, a turnaround of about 10 weeks. It's not long to recover from a knockout. You know, you could argue that he is 0 wins and 4 losses in his last 4 fights, you know, barely getting past Aldo. And you just got a question, aren't you, that, you know, did Cejudo break his spirit when they fought? And that's the question you got to wonder. And it's going to be interesting to see where he goes and what he does in the new year, you know, with the current roster culling that is all upcoming. You know, a guy like Marlon, who, you know, is going to be one of the higher paid guys in the division, not performing. I think his next fight could very much be a last chance saloon for him. And this next fight is where the card started to fall down for me. Up to now, I'd got it perfect with my picks, but Michel Pereira getting the unanimous decision nod against Chaos Williams, 29-28 across the board. Underwhelming fight, if I'm being honest with you. Underwhelming. When you have 2 guys that go out there and are killers, you expect a killer performance from both of them. And I thought it were a pretty average fight, to be fair. Did you have Pereira winning, KDiggy? I know there was some hoo-ha, some people saying they thought Williams had won, others saying Pereira. How did you score it?
I had Pereira, Michel Pereira winning the fight. He just looked huge in there. He looked absolutely massive compared. Like, you see Chaos Williams against these guys who he knocks out in the first round, and he's usually the big, scary man. But just the size of Michel Pereira, you can just see how he's polished his game, and he doesn't need to do all these flips, and he had that respect for Chaos Williams, and it paid off for him, and he definitely deserved the win for me. I had Michel. 2 or 3 rounds. I couldn't really see it. Chaos Williams winning it, to be honest. He just looked a shell of himself. He was just walking. He was just walking at him, hands up, and Pereira just pieced him apart.
Yeah, and that was kind of the real taking point that I took from the fight. Chaos Williams looked lost when he couldn't land that knockout shot, when he couldn't get him out of there early doors. He was kind of a bit flabbergasted and baffled as to what to do and how to deal with the fighter that was in front of him. For either guy, you got Pereira, Jimbo Slice. Never really fought anyone of a caliber in the UFC. Do you think they need to step up in competition now?
Yeah, I think he needs to either just outside the top 15 or a top 15 opponent. He's always had the skill, I believe, to do it. He clowned around, and it feels like in his last 2 fights he's not clowned. He's realised, I'm not going to be a clown of the year this year. I'm gonna get on with it. And there was 2 moments in that fight that I thought, yeah, he'd have won this if it went on for 10 more seconds each round. I believe it was the end of the second round when he got in a rear naked on Chaos Williams. 5 more seconds, I think he'd have got the tap. And he ended, I think, the third with some naughty ground and pound. It's like I don't see anyone as well how they scored it for Williams, to be honest. I just don't see it at all.
I had it for Pereira.
Yeah, but I think Pereira needs a top 15, low or just outside the 15, because he's got the skill and he is well rounded. You might think, he's just very good at striking. He's got some decent grappling on him as well, and he seems to have put it together now. He's not going just for flips. He's not doing what made everyone fall in love with him when he knocks out Hot Chocolate Danny Roberts. He's going to win now. He doesn't want the roar of the crowd. I really think this time when there's no crowd has really helped him.
It's a fair take. I mean, I was just having a quick browse of the lower 15, and a name that stuck out to me, I don't know if he's got a fight scheduled at the moment, but would be the fighter on the skid at the moment, Ruthless Robbie Lawler. I think it'd be a good test for him to see where he's up to. You've got a fighter in Robbie who's complete, the full package, but on the kind of twilight of his career. And if Michelle can go out there and put out a kind of Star is Born performance on him, I think it'll prove that he belongs in that upper echelon of the welterweight division. Now,
I'll tell you. Oh, sorry. I'll tell you who I'd just like to see him. I'd like to see him beat up. I'd like to see him put a beating on Mike Perry.
You read my mind. Read my mind.
It crossed my. I've thought about that fight as well, but I don't want to give that geezer any more limelight than he needs in this episode. He's going to get some in a bit. But yeah, it's a fight that I'd watch that fight. I think it'd be a good fight, a very testing fight for both fighters. I think that's the way to go for him, to be fair. Someone who likes a stand-up fight, but has that capability to go to the ground as well. I mean, Lawler has that more than Perry does, but we'll see what happens. But moving on to the co-main of the card, a stupid decision in the 3rd round, early doors in the 3rd round, for me, cost Marlon Vera the decision in that fight. Talk us through the fight, KDiggy.
Yeah, really, really good fight overall for me. Aldo usually starts quite slow, but he came out the gate swinging, and he had a really, really solid first round. I had him quite clearly. I was quite confident going into the second round because he was my pick to win, I believe by decision. I think I can't remember, but I had Aldo to win, and he came out that first round, and he looked good. He looked good striking. He was lighting up Vera, but then you could see how Vera's got. He does have his gas tank, and he slowly progressed through the fight. But I think by the time Vera was winning the fight, it was too late. It was probably halfway through the third round when I had no. What am I saying? So I think, yeah, Aldo got the first, Vera got the second, and then Aldo scrapes the third. I think that's how I scored it anyway.
Scraped the third. He had his back for the entire round.
Yeah, but he was knackered on top of him, weren't he? He wasn't doing too much.
He had the dominant position, though. The thing for me, I had it the same as you. I had Aldo coming out strong in that first. Second round, Vera pulling it back a bit. But then for whatever reason, in that start of that 3rd round, he just rushed at Aldo, tried to take him down, and then gave up that dominant position and got stuck. He just couldn't get out for the entire round. And if he'd have maintained, kept that distance, stayed on the feet and thrown kicks and punches, I think he'd have probably won that fight. But instead, He went for a ludicrous takedown, a ludicrous ground advancement, and it cost him the fight. Really, really disappointing performance from Chito Vera there for me. And we both picked it the same, didn't we? We both picked Chito to win Jimbo Slice. Where do you think he goes from here?
I think really this is a loss to Jose Aldo, who is ranked quite highly in the division. Chito Vera can take another lower ranked bantamweight fight. Someone who's on the lower end, and whoever wins then has got the momentum again. Trying to think off the top of my head. Obviously, he could fight Sean O'Malley for the first time. He's never fought him, according to O'Malley, and that never happened. Do you know who I actually want to see him rematch? I want to see him rematch Song Yadong. I know he's not in the bantamweight division. It's featherweight, I believe. But I want to see him actually get that victory that he should have got the first time. But really, the thing that stood out to me, everyone was going, "Oh, Jose Aldo looks amazing. He's brought back the leg kicks and this, and he's amazing." He looks like a shell of the man who he was. Like, yes, he threw some leg kicks. Personally, to me, I've never been as big fan of the Jose Aldo thigh kick that he always throws. I'm more of a calf kick man. I think that's where the damage is. That's the way forward. But Jose Aldo did not look like he did when he was featherweight champion of the world. He looked decent. He looked a top 10 bantamweight. He didn't look like he could be champion. I think Chito Vera, really, though, it's a loss to Jose Aldo at the end of the day. It's lost to a former champion. Take this in your stride. Concentrate again. Bounce back. Learn some octagon IQ. Learn some fight IQ. Make some decisions better on the fly. Listen to your coaches, and you'll be sorted. He's a man who could be a champion in a few years.
Yeah. I like Marlon Vera. I remember him from his days on Tough Latin America. And I'm a big fan of him. I actually met a guy once that trained with him, and I remember how excited I was that he knew Marlon Vera. I'm a big fan of his work. I'd like to see him fight Sean O'Malley again, to be fair, just to run that fight back. But I think, as you say, Jimbo, a lower ranked fighter in that bantamweight division would be a good move for him. The only question I really have from this fight now, in terms of Jose Aldo, was what the fuck was that tattoo on his chest that he had? Did you boys notice that?
I don't think it was a tattoo. I've seen some articles.
It rubbed off by the end, didn't it? It had gone by the end.
Was it a military patch? I read some. I don't really know what it was, but I didn't look into it that much detail.
I remember seeing it and thinking, "Oh God, what's that tattoo there? That's hideous." But it had gone by the end of the fight. But again, another fighter calling out Killershaw, TJ Dillashaw. Do you think that's a good fight to make, KDiggy?
No, not personally. I think even though Aldo got the win, I don't feel like he particularly shone in this fight. I think the next fight for Aldo would be sort of taking a look back at what happened previously in this card and having him against Rob Font. I think that would be an interesting fight as well. I think it'd be a good name for Rob Font to take on, and it's a clear step up after Marlon Moraes. So that would be who I would put him against. And with Marlon Vera, I'd get him against Merab. How do you say? Dishavali.
The
Georgian.
Oh yeah.
I think
the one who just beat John Dodson.
Yeah, I'd feed him.
I'd watch that.
I think Merab.
It's a good fight for both of them.
Would have his number. I think they've both got good gas tanks and they're both very skilled. But I think Merab's on his way up in that division, so I think it would be a scary fight for Marlon.
I'd watch it. I would watch it.
My thing is, I think that TJ Dillashaw fight might be made. Because if you're TJ Dillashaw, you're looking at that going, I can beat that Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
And Jose Aldo's already, we know he wants the fight. TJ Dillashaw thinks, I'll take that fight. If I beat him, I beat a former champion. I beat a man who's just fought for the title. I beat someone who's probably, is he ranked 5th, maybe 6th? So he's got himself in there. He looks like he's earned a title. He looks like he's earned a title shot. And Dillashaw's thinking, I'm back in there.
And I
don't want that. but I think it'll happen.
Yeah.
I think it's the fight to make, to be fair, because you've got Peter Yan and Aljo going to be fighting at some point early next year. TJ can come back end of January, February time. So for me, he's going to be in fighting shape now. Why would he wait until like the summer, autumn to fight for the title when he realistically could do with a tune-up fight? And I actually did forget about a bit of news. Frankie Edgar, Corey Sandhagen's been announced.
Oh, yes.
I actually think Edgar Dillashaw would have been a good fight to make for the same reasons that you were discussing with the Aldo one. In the sense that you've got a former champion coming down, good name value to beat. Not that he would beat him, because Frankie Edgar is highly touted in my pound list for next year. But it'd been a good fight. I think it'd have been a good fight, and that's a great fight, Edgar Sandhagen. But it'll be interesting to see where they go with both Vera and Aldo booking wise moving forward, because there's a lot of options in that bantamweight division. It's a lot more open than it used to be. It used to be a couple of fighters at the top. You'd beat one, then you'd fight for the title, as Uriah Faber exploited a number of occasions. But we'll see what happens coming into the new year. But I think whatever fight either of them have next is going to be exciting. And the main event, Stephen Thompson putting on a masterclass performance over 5 rounds against Jeff Neal. Bit of a clash of heads early in the fight, though. Thompson getting a cut here, and Neal getting a cut there just on his eyebrow. Jimbo Slice, do you think that cut to Neal impeded his performance?
I think if it impeded Neal's, it'll impede the blood coming out of Wonderboy would be just affect him just as much as it affect Neal. I just think this was a masterclass by Stephen Thompson, darting in and out, throwing combinations. You don't often see combinations being thrown in in MMA as much as you do in things like boxing. It was just circling out, landing combinations, hitting him all day. Neal made the mistake in my mind of trying to aim and hit with one big punch. Yeah. I always think Stephen Thompson's stance leads itself especially to leg kicks, and I don't think anyone's really exploited that. Yeah, it might. Don't get me wrong, Thompson's probably a man who knows exactly what he's doing and know how to stop that, but I think that's the obvious thing to do. But obviously, I'm not them. I just think this was no one in that division has the striking of Wonderboy Thompson, it seems like. And I just can't. Do you know what? I just want him to fight for the title. I just want him to be champion. I want him to go down as a champion in UFC history. If not, he will probably go down as the best fighter never to win a championship. Him or Alexander Gustafsson. But I think he's got a good chance of getting up there and fighting for a title again if he manages to get someone like Leon Edwards, Khamzat Chimaev. If one of them falls out, you step in, you go for that title. But he's probably got a medical suspension from that cut, so he probably can't.
He's got a muscle injury, I think he was saying. And then with the cuts being where they are, I think he probably have a suspension for that as well. But the thing for me with Thompson is just he's a bloody good striker, isn't he? Let's not beat around the bush. There's no other way of putting it. Got one of the best takedown defenses in the division. Very rarely taken down. And my question to you, KDiggy, do you think he could beat Kamaru Usman and claim the title?
No. I would. I think there's only two welterweight champions that he couldn't beat, and I think it's George St. Pierre and I think it's Kamaru Usman. I think they're the only two, even though he lost against Woodley as well.
He beat Woodley in that first fight.
He beat him in the second.
What a great! That was like one of the best fights. That first Stephen Thompson. I've got such good memories watching that fight. But yeah, I was so happy this whole fight, just watching Thompson do what he does best, and he was just great. He was light on his feet, and Jeff Neal was a little bit starstruck by it all as well, and didn't really know what to do. He was, as Jimbo said, he was a little bit perplexed by the whole situation on what he should do. But he's 38 years old, and he does need to sort of have. He's fought those people who are making their way up, and now it's time for him to fight someone who's up there. Unfortunately, it is sort of a stagnant division at the minute. I think Usman's. I don't know if he's having surgery or if he's just hibernating or what he's doing. He doesn't seem to be doing too much. And then there's Colby who's doing the same thing. He's just making his videos and putting them on Instagram. And he's obviously we're wanting him to fight Masvidal. So there is a bit of a blockage at the top there. So Thompson would have to sort of take a step back and wait. But if just say if Masvidal did beat Colby, would Masvidal want to look down and fight Thompson? I just can't see it happening.
He's in a bit of a tough position because, like you say, KDiggy, there's a massive logjam at the top of the welterweight division at the moment. When you think about who's in front of him, you've got Gilbert Burns going to be fighting Usman at some point for the title. You've got Colby going to be fighting Masvidal at some point, or rumoured. And then I think there's Leon Edwards above him as well. It might be just below.
I think Leon's above.
I think Leon's above as well. But in that kind of general vicinity, you've got him fighting Khamzat Chimaev. And the question really is there, if the Colby Masvidal fight falls through and Masvidal not wanting to do anything, I think Thompson Colby would be the fight to make. But we'll see what happens. And then you've got there's just so many moving parts. Because if Khamzat beats Edwards, Khamzat will be getting the next title shot, whether he deserves it or not. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see where he goes from here and what happens. But I love Stephen Thompson. I just want him to get a title.
I actually think what you said there, I think the winner of either Khamzat or Edwards is getting the title fight next. I think
they'll do the dirty on Leon if he doesn't, if he beats him. I think they'll do the dirty on him purely because Khamzat's only ranked 15th. They'll do the dirty on him and say, oh, well, you didn't beat someone in the top 5, so you're not having a title shot. That's just a bad fight for Edwards, especially considering how bad he had COVID. To be fighting against so soon in next month, I'm really concerned that he's going to be impeded in that performance and lose to Khamzat. I'm very concerned about that fight, so we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, you'd like to think that whoever wins that would get the next title shot after Burns, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Anything that you boys want to discuss about this card before we move on?
Nothing from me.
It's a good card. Yeah, first one from me as well.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good card. I enjoyed it a lot. There were some really good fights. I think if we'd have had finishes in the Aldo, Vera, and then the Bahia Williams, it would be in contention possibly for fight card of the year for me, that main card, because the fights were all very exciting on the whole.
It's nice to stay, like I stayed sober and watched it all just on my laptop in bed till 3 a.m, and it was worth it. It's so great to watch, sort of. But just imagine if Leon Edwards and Khamzat was on the top of this card as well.
Oh, it'd have been amazing, wouldn't it?
Mind blowing.
It'd have been absolutely amazing.
But it was still great as it was, and I was happy to stay up and watch it. And it was good to be number one.
So, yeah, don't get used to it, pal. Next year, the big dog's going to take over on the verdict.
I like a bit of competition. Can get it, baby.
So there's no card this week. There's nothing for us to break down. No predictions to put in. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look back on this year and what's happened. It's been a bit of a whirlwind year, to be fair. They were throwing stats around saying something like there's been a UFC card every weekend since July. So for us to have a weekend without a card is, I'm not going to lie, it's a nice break, to be honest with you. It's a really nice break. Yeah. It takes it, as much as I enjoy the fights and I enjoy the content, it does take its toll of being so many cards on and so many fights. It's so hard to keep up. But we manage it. It's nice to take a week off and to look back and discuss some of the highlights of the year. So we've got a few picks that we've all put together. I'll just run myself through them now, what they are, and I will let our listener know. So we've got Fighter of the Year, Upset of the Year, Heartbreak of the Year, KO of the Year, moment of the year, fight of the year, card of the year, and then a BigDawg special, the top 5 clowns of 2020 as well. Is there any reason we haven't gone for a sub?
No, I just didn't put it in there. You can, if you want to throw that in as a freestyle, I'm happy with it.
We'll put sub of the year in there as well.
To
be fair, it's the same as one of the other picks. So we'll cover them both together. Yeah. Right. We'll start out of the gate with what card of the year? And I'll come to you first, KDiggy. What is your card of 2020?
I like to think that everyone has got the same one as here. To me, when looking through all the cards from this year, I could only see one which competed with this one. But for this one, there was only one title fight, and it was actually an interim title fight, and it was the post-COVID break UFC 249 card. I can see you.
Hang on a minute. What? Cejudo were on that card as well.
Oh,
Don't
no.
Forget.
Was it the Cejudo Cruz.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, because it was an interim at the main
Must have
event
been really memorable for you then, mate.
Yeah,
Can't even remember on the card.
So just to sort of name a few fighters that were on this card. On the early prelims, we had Mitchell, we had Ryan Spann. On the prelims, we had Luque, Nico Price, Verdum, Olenek, Pettis, Cerrone. Then main card was just fireworks. So 2 big boys in Hardy and Castro. Qatar against our Jimbo Slice's good friend Jeremy Stevens, where Calvin just looks incredible. Francis is in big KO, taking out Rosenstruck in 20 seconds. Cejudo's retirement after beating Cruz, and then Cruz crying about it for the next 2 weeks, and then one of the biggest heartbreaks of the year. This might be a few people's, when Tony was just walking into haymaker after haymaker and had to be stopped by the doctor. So UFC 249 is my card of the year.
Yeah. I've picked the same card. I've gone for 249 as well, but for different reasons. Obviously, the fights were all really good. They were great fights. A stacked card, like you said, from top to bottom. But the thing for me, KDiggy, with this one was what the event stood for, and the excitement and anticipation surrounding it. You know, we were at a time where there hadn't been any sport at all for about 6 weeks, and it was knowing that this card was coming, and it was something to look forward to. It was just a bit of normality in what was quite a dark time for everyone in the world. And like you said, the fights were all banging as well. Jimbo Slice, is it a sweep?
It is a clean sweep. That's exactly. Yeah. Oh, the dog here. That's exactly the fight card I picked. Well, mate, I'm just going to move the dog.
Yeah, that's all right. We're having some technical difficulties here on the old podcast.
Yeah, the reason I picked it is for that exact reason. I picked it for. I'll be perfectly honest. I believe everyone at this time wasn't feeling themselves, weren't feeling great, and I think this card it introduced some normality. It made the world feel just okay for a few hours, and it was a banging card. It was a great card. I think there might even be some cards that might have been better if you just like the Woodley Covington card was
great card.
UFC.
I was contemplating UFC that one to put that on.
UFC 250 was criminally underrated, apart from the main event. But what UFC 249 stood for is the reason I've gone for it.
Yeah, and I agree. Great, I agree with both of you. What it meant and the superb fights as well. Next, KDiggy, what category do you want to go for next? You can pick this one.
Let's go for knockout of the year.
Oh yes.
Right, Jimbo Slice, we'll stay with you. What's your knockout of the year?
Well, I've gone for one that I think some people will have forgotten. I think some people. I've not gone for the Buckleys. I've not gone for the Hollands. I have gone for the buzzer beater knockout of Rafael Assunção at UFC 250 by Cody Garbrandt.
That's a great knockout. Yeah, it's definitely up there. It's one of the.
I think that what impressed me is Rafael Assunção might have been on I think he might have lost 2 before that, but this is a man who was ranked top 5, and it's the speed, the quickness, and the high level man that you knocked out here, while some others like Buckley and knocked someone who was nowhere near the top 15, and I know Holland's knocked out Souza technically wasn't in the top 15, but the skill required to knock out Rafael Assunção and the speed it was done, the time it was done, I love a walk-off now. That is mine.
It's a great knockout. I was watching that knockout earlier on, to be fair, whilst I was doing my research for these picks, and it's a beautiful knockout. I think that the thing that lets Cody down for the pick, for me, I haven't picked this one. It's up to that point, he didn't look amazing. He just looked like the Cody of old and not really doing what he needed to do, but he made up for it with a beautiful stoppage. And KDiggy, what's your pick here?
I completely agree with what Jimbo was saying. For me, it is number 2, Cody Garbrandt, but it has to be the Hakeem Buckley real life ninja stuff. Getting his leg caught, having one leg suspended in the air and just flipping around and kicking someone in the face, and the way he fell in slow motion and was stiff on the ground. I just think it doesn't get more perfect as a KO than that for me, and I think that one was the KO of the year.
It was up there for me, but I haven't picked that one. I've gone for a highly touted pound pick next year in the Kevin Holland knocking out Jacare Souza. I thought it were beautiful, absolutely beautiful. To do what he did off the ground, off his back, to get that kind of velocity and power to knock somebody out is a lot harder than what either of your 2 picks went for. Buckley was beautiful. It was a beautiful knockout. I'm not going to dispute that. I did contemplate picking it, because it's not often you see something like that. It reminded me of Uriah Hall's knockout back in 2013 on The Ultimate Fighter, in just pure beauty. But for me, just the manner in which Kevin Holland did it, that short notice fill-in fight to fight Jacare on his back, bosh, 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 knocked out from the ground, from the bottom, beautiful.
3 very good KOs. I don't think you can really go wrong with any of them. But I remember watching that Hakeem Buckley fight, and I was watching it, and it happened, and a few people missed it who I was watching it with, and I said that was the best knockout I've ever seen. And it is overrated once you're watching it like at the time. And I would say it was the best knockout of the year, but it's not the best knockout I've ever seen.
No. So next, we'll take a break from us all putting as picks in a bit of a discussion and debate. And what we're going to go for is my picks for the clowns of the year. And I've been given 5. I was allowed 5 clowns, and it was tough. There's a few people that I wanted to put in there, but I chose not to. This is in no particular order, apart from this first one, who is the BigDawg's clown of the year. And it's actually 2 people, to be fair. It's not one. It's the combination of Diego Sanchez and Joshua Fabia as one. Fabia being Diego Sanchez's coach. Completely ruined Sanchez, made him an absolute cretin of an individual. The way that he bottled it against Michel Pereira, taking that DQ win in a fight that he was getting absolutely dominated in, was shameful and embarrassing. Fabia, this all happened last year, but the videos of it came out this year of him part of a training routine with a few people chasing them around with a knife. and getting them to run and try and escape and use movement. I just think it's the makings of an absolute madman. And then Diego Sanchez coming out in his last fight against Jake Matthews with the Hail Mary, Masvidal knee and just completely missing it. That alone is enough to get in the list. But the combination and pairing of the two of them together is enough to be the number one pick for the biggest clown of the year. And if you haven't looked at Joshua Fabia's website, do. The man is an absolute mentalist.
Noted.
Another pick for one of the clowns of this year. I'll give you this one now, and then we'll come back to some more clowns later on, rather than me just rattling off all 5 of them now. Purely on the basis of how he carried himself after a loss and the manner in which he went about it, and is Sean O'Malley. Just a clown. I'm mentally undefeated. Well, you're fucking not, mate. You lost. It's as simple as that. You know, these people who fight at this level, you know, losing's hard for them, and I accept that. But you can't go around saying that you didn't lose because, you know, the fucking record don't lie, does it? You know what I'm saying? What a fucking cretin and what an absolute doylem. Going around as well saying, "Oh, I'm earning bare peas on fucking Twitch, streaming Fortnite and shit like that." The man's had about 20 subscribers, and he was just going around clouting at the start of the year saying he was earning all this money. And it's like, I don't know how you are, mate. You've got no subscribers, so fuck off. So that's 2. I've got 3 more to go. We'll move on to the upset of the year. I'll start whilst I'm talking. I'll keep going. Doing a bit of research here. Technically, the biggest upset of all time happened on a card this year. Have you picked that?
I haven't picked it, but I was going to mention this myself. I haven't picked it, but I was going to mention it.
Technically, the biggest upset of all time happened on a UFC card, but I haven't picked it purely because it was buried on the undercard, and it was a fight with no bearing or value to it. When Shayna Dobson beat Maria Sagapova on the Munoz Edgar undercard, is technically the biggest upset of all time in a UFC card, but I haven't gone for that, and I've gone for one at the start of the year. Anyone with a bit of knowledge of the sport was thinking this might not go this way, but the way that Macy Barber was carrying herself before the fight and performances before when she came up against Roxanne Modafferi, would have easily said she's going to kill her, and that's not what happened. The knee went out. She tore her ACL mid-fight, and it completely ruined her performance, and she lost. Quite a big upset, quite highly ranked in terms of biggest upsets of all time. But I was all in on Barber. I genuinely thought she was going to do it.
Youngest.
Might have even had a bet on. Pardon?
You wanted to be the youngest UFC champion, and it just all came.
Yeah, and I think it'd have been a really interesting fight to see what would have happened if a knee hadn't given out, because who knows what might have happened. But it was a huge upset at the time, and it'll be one that's talked about for years to come, with highly touted prospects going up against ranked competition and losing. Jimbo Slice, you put your head in your hands there. Talk me through it.
I was actually I've written down 2 because I thought someone was going to pick this one, and I had another one that was joint. Now the reason I've gone for this one is it was a big upset in terms of odds, but also it was a big upset in terms of how the fight was going. I have picked Damon Jackson subbing Zar Bektic with a guillotine choke in the 3rd round.
That's an outsider pick. I like it.
If people remember, Bektic was on a bit of a skid, but he was the big favourite for this fight. And from what I remember, he handedly won the 1st round, maybe even with a 10-8, and the 2nd round he absolutely dominated him. So it was sort of a, you know how this fight's going. Boom, cheeky guillotine in the 3rd round near the beginning from Damon Jackson. Hail Mary guillotine. It worked. Great submission. And I believe, personally, the upset of the year, if we do not include Modafferi and Barber, because that was my other pick.
I think that's a fair pick for the Bektic fight. I'd completely forgotten about that fight. But he's got a habit of doing that because he did it against Elkins, comfortably winning, rounds 1 and 2 and getting finished in the final round. For Bektic to really be, he's got a lot of potential. He's a good fighter, but he needs to get that mental block, and keep going in the fight. But KDiggy, we digress. What was your pick for upset of the year?
When we say upset of the year, I'm contemplating in a bit of a different way, really, and I'm thinking how upset the UFC would have been because of this result. And I don't think you two are going to agree with this, but for my pick of upset of the year is Jan Blachowicz's win over Dominic Reyes, because the UFC had
When you
Reyes
think of it, how you're
as the golden boy, and they wanted him to be the UFC light heavyweight champion, but the way Jan Blachowicz dominated him was an upset. So for me, Jan Blachowicz versus Dominic Reyes was my upset of the year.
When you think about how you thought of it, bit of an outside mentality. I agree with you, but no, it's not upset of the year. But it's a good pick. I like the way that you've gone about it. Next pick we'll go for. We'll sticking with the theme of upset, but slightly different. Heartbreak of the year. KDiggy will stay with you.
Cool. So there are a few from this year's. Obviously, we've got retirements, we've got injuries, we've got COVID, we've got cancelled fights. But for me, it doesn't get more real than death and in real life. And for me, the heartbreaking moment of the year was when Alistair Overeem beat Walt Harris. It was supposed to be Walt Harris's time to avenge his stepdaughter, and he didn't do it. He got brutally finished by Alistair Overeem, and that was my heartbreaking moment of the year.
I believe you're laughing, Jimbo Slice. You heartless bastard.
I was laughing because I thought he was saying Alistair Overeem kills Walt Harris. I was like, you can't be saying that. That's what I was thinking he was saying.
Do you know what?
I thought that's what he was saying. I'd forgotten about Walt Harris's daughter. I thought he would just go like, oh, we're going real life. I was thinking, oh, Khabib's dad. Yeah. And then you just went, Walt Harris being beaten. I thought you're like, you can't be saying he's killed him because he hasn't. I genuinely had forgotten.
Do you know what?
Oh.
I remember watching that fight, and I'm a huge Overeem fan. I absolutely love Alistair Overeem. I rate him highly. I think he's one of the, if not the best heavyweight fighter in the world. And I remember wanting even though I love Alistair Overeem, I remember wanting Walt Harris to win for that reason. And when he didn't, it was sad. And the way he cried in the octagon afterwards, I have put something else, and I'll break that down. But that's definitely up there for me. Is one of the most upsetting moments here. The most upsetting moment of the year for me was a rematch that took place on Fight Island, when a new champion was crowned in the form of Davison Figueiredo, when he absolutely obliterated Joseph Benavidez and submitted him in one of the most brutal submissions I've ever seen in my life, which is also a pick for submission of the year because it was brutal. But just the absolute devastation after the fight, in waking up after being unconscious, hearing him audibly kind of cry out, and then Megan Oliva being on the other side of the cage from him. It was devastating stuff. And, Joseph Benavidez, one of the nicest guys in the UFC, and to see him lose in the manner in which he did, it was absolutely devastating. Jimbo Slice, what's your pick?
I had thought of Khabib's father, but I thought that's really something personal for him. I genuinely had forgotten about Walt Harris because I feel like that's really what I should have picked. To be honest, that is really the number one. I genuinely had forgotten all this because I think his daughter went missing at the end of last year, so I genuinely had forgotten all about that. But the one I've actually gone for is a retirement, and it's not a retirement of Khabib. I've gone with, because he went out on top, I've gone with the retirement for Daniel Cormier, and him going out being the second best in everything he's ever done, and it just how gutted he felt, because and I don't think he is. I think he's one of the best of all time, but you could just see it in his face. Like, I can never say I'm the best at anything here. And that was the one. But I do think really it's Walt Harris, isn't it? Like, I genuinely have forgotten about that card. Like, why are we talking about anything else? It's Walt Harris.
On the topic of DC, I had no sorrow when he lost that fight. All that went through my mind after he got poked in the eye was karma is a bitch, you dickhead. That was all I thought. From what he did to Stipe in their second fight, it wasn't intentional, but it was karma. The way that he intentionally scratched Miocic's eyes, poked him in the eyes, for that to happen, it was poetic justice as far as I was concerned. But yeah, Walt Harris losing in the manner in which he did after everything that happened is definitely upset of the year. Not upset of the year, heartbreak of the year, sorry. But yeah, fuck DC. Anyway, moving on.
DC, I like that one.
We'll come back, we'll return to the Big Dog's picks for clowns of the year. Another one who I despise, does my absolute head in. At first, I was delighted when he said, I am retiring from this sport. Henry Cejudo. I was so happy when he said, I'm off. I thought, thank fuck. Don't need to deal with this twat anymore. Don't need to hear him chiming off saying how he's Triple C and people need to bend the knee and that he's the intergender champion and all that. I was so happy. But then from the sidelines, he's there giving it big licks, calling out Volkanovski and just being absolutely not even in the game anymore, man. And he goes around giving it big licks. And you've retired. If you're out of the game, stay out of the game. Don't dip your toe back in the water. If you're going to come back. But don't sit there saying that you want these fights when you're not going to come back out and fight. But yeah, just an absolute waste, man, of a guy. And he's done.
Can't say it that way.
He's done a bit of a jokey skit for the Fighters Only MMA Awards, and it's clearly a piss take of him, and you can see in his eyes that he doesn't see it as a piss take. He genuinely thinks he is the man, and he's just an absolute douche. I cannot stand him. Another pick for clown of the year. El Kukui, Tony Ferguson. Absolute clown. Absolute clown. When you look back in retrospect, we'll start off initial 249 is meant to be fighting Khabib. The card gets cancelled. Even though he's fighting a few weeks later, he still decides to do a full weight cut to make weight, and then does the exact same weight cut a few weeks later and is impeded by said weight cut in the performance. Fights Justin Gaethje, doesn't attempt a single takedown until the 5th round, doesn't even try it, content to stand and bang, which goes completely against him. Knowing what we know now about Gaethje's ground game, following his fight with Khabib, he'd have beat him, and we'd have had the fight that we all craved and wanted in Khabib Ferguson. We'd have had that earlier on this year, and we'd have been salivating and so excited about it. It'd have been absolutely beautiful. But no, Tony Ferguson has to decide to stay upright, stay vertical for the entire fight, and it goes against him. And then in his fight against Charles Oliveira, just the way he carried himself in fight week, saying Oliveira's going to miss weight, just calling him out with no real just cause or anything like that. And then after the fight, saying, "Oh yeah, you were mentally broken after round one." What a clown! What an absolute clown! Just accept your loss and move on with your life. Very disappointing, and I'll never forgive him for losing to Gaethje. I'll never forgive him. So we'll go now. We'll move on to the next two we're going to pick is going to be, firstly, moment of the year. I haven't actually written anything down here. I started writing something, but I didn't finish it. So I'll listen to what your boys' suggestions are for a bit of inspiration. So, KDiggy, what's your moment of the year?
There's a lot of moments this year, obviously, but and it's been a great year for the UFC and for fans of the UFC. But personally, I would go for the Khabib retirement as the moment of the year. I think after all he'd been through with his father passing away from COVID, to people doubting him against Justin Gaethje, there was serious doubt that he wasn't going to beat Justin Gaethje, Not from me personally. I knew he was going to do it, but he got through it and he got to his 29-0, and he said, and he took off his gloves and he said, "I'm not going to fight anymore because my mother doesn't want me to." And I thought, to say that in the middle of a UFC ring it does take some balls. And even if he does sort of come back, I still think it was a great moment for the whole of the UFC. And if he decides to come back, or if he doesn't decide to come back, I think it is a fantastic moment.
Okay, I've remembered what I was going to put, what I was thinking about, and I'll stick with that. I'm going to take you back to the end of June this year. Kamaru Usman's meant to be fighting Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns pulls out. Who's there on a week's notice? A week's notice to fight arguably one of the scariest fighters in the UFC, let alone the welterweight division, in the form of Kamaru Usman. None other than Masvidal himself, Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, the biggest fucking minerals in the sport, on a week's notice, stepping in, fighting Usman. And whilst the fight itself was underwhelming and a bit disappointing, the excitement and build-up in fight week of thinking, do you know what? He could do this. He could genuinely do this. And then the undercard, you had the Volk Holloway fight, Yanya Aldo, Nami Yunus Andrade, I think, was on that card. I can't remember what the other fight was.
Versus Amanda Ribas.
Paige Van Zandt getting submitted and released after the fight. Yeah, just the build-up that fight week was absolutely phenomenal, and just the manner in which he stepped in, it was just riveting stuff. So my pick for moment of the year is Masvidal stepping in at the last minute to fight Kamaru Usman. Jimbo Slice, what is yours?
Well, that was mine. My other one was going to be the Khabib retirement, but I thought everyone's going to pick that. So I went for the Masvidal take the fight on short notice. It did lead to an underwhelming thing, and people are forgetting that. People are forgetting the moment that built up to like, oh my, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Because the fight was underwhelming. But it was that 9 days, was it? Was it 9 days? No one that I can remember takes a title fight like that on that short notice to fight a dangerous fighter. I know Joe Soto did it against TJ Dillashaw, but what did he have to lose? 24 hours notice. What did he have to lose? He wasn't even in the UFC. He's got himself signed and got in title fight. I know there's been a few more, but it was just and it was, if you remember, Masvidal was having all these issues with contract negotiations. Nothing was going on. It was briefly linked to Leon Edwards that might be taking the fight, but he couldn't. He said, "Well, I'm not doing it. I'm flying out when there's COVID going on." It was just the surprise of Masvidal as well, because we knew he was having these contract issues, and he'd already turned down that fight because of contract issues.
It was good. I enjoyed it a lot. But to be fair, when you listen to us just saying it was dead exciting compared to kind of the moment of peace for Khabib, I think it's got to go to the Khabib retirement over Masvidal stepping in on a few days' notice for a fight, because it was beautiful, it was poetic, the way that Khabib finished off his career. So the next category we'll go for, we'll stay with you, Jimbo Slice, and we'll say fight of the year.
Now, this is not my fight of the year, but this is my second fight of the year, because I think we all know what is the real fight of the year. But I've said this one because I think it had the best round of the year. I think round 2 of this fight is possibly the best round in any fight in recent history. This fight is Poirier versus Hooker. I've gone well thought.
Oh yeah, good round.
It was, what a fight! It had everything. If the fight continued like it did in the first 2 rounds, it in the later rounds, I think it would have been fight of the year. But what it showed as well, though, was Dustin's thinking, I'm losing just standing here in the pocket and trading. And he took it into his mind and he grappled him for those final 3 rounds and did what he needed to do to win. It showed his intelligence. But I'm not going to mention what is the actual fight of the year, because we all know what's fight of the year, and I'm sure someone here will have what is the fight of the year down. But this to me had the best round of any fight in modern history. And what a fight. What a fight was Poirier versus Hooker. It just needed something more than this is a fight for a top contender. If this was a championship fight, I think it might have been fight of the year. But what a fight it was.
KDiggy, I think I know what your fight of the year is going to be because we've had this conversation already. But do you want to move on with the formalities?
Yeah, so my fight of the year is the same as Uncle Dana's fight of the year, and it was pre-COVID, the good times. We had Jimmy Neutron against Weili Zhang, my girl Weili Zhang, and what a fight this was! It just went on and on and on, like with striking, like it broke records in its striking numbers. There was injuries. There was Joanna's head coming out here, and Weili Zhang's face just popping out as well. It was crazy, and Dana completely agrees with me as well. So that's all I need, I think, to as my argument.
The relentless pace of my fight for the full 25 minutes, going into the 5th round, I did not have a clue who would win. There was just so much action from start to finish, all the way throughout the fight. You didn't know who would win. The fight is debated for who the winner was, and my fight is Israel Adesanya against Yoel Romero. I'm joking. It's the same as you. It's the same as UK Diggy. It's Weili Zhang against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. The conversation starts and ends there, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
I remember sitting there watching it, going into that 5th round, and genuinely being like, I have not got a clue who is going to win this. I had it to a piece. It's like, this could go either way. Anything could happen now. And it's a fight that I'd love to see run back down the line. Obviously, Weili Zhang's got a fight lined up potentially with Rose Namajunas. It depends who you ask, because Dana reckons that she don't want the fight. But it's a fight that, for me, needs to be run back at some point down the line. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And just perfection as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Before we get to the fighter of the year, we'll stick with the final clown, and it is Platinum Mike Perry. Just what a clown. I don't even know where to start with this man. I do not know where to start with Mike Perry and why he is a clown. Just all you need to do is type into Google Mike Perry 2020 and you'll get it all. Punching people outside of bars, turning up overweight, having his partner in his corner and having no people with, real credentials. His feud with Darren Till, who just clowns him and completely takes the piss out of him. Just what a clown. What an absolute clown. I don't even want to talk about this man anymore. I just hope they cut the geezer because he is a clown. So, moving on from the worst, we'll get to the best and fighter of the year. My fighter of the year is a man who, in an earlier episode, the mere mention of his name made me laugh. It made me laugh, boys. This is a man that has fought 5 times this year and has won 5 times this year. This is a man who has stepped up to the plate time and time again, and next year will be a highly touted pound-for-pound fighter, and that is Kevin Holland.
He's back, baby. It is a difficult one this year. I think it could have been easily won if the decision went to Figueiredo last week. I would have had Figueiredo taking the win.
I think you've got to look at his weight, missing weight though earlier on in the year.
But for me,
he
saved the flyweight division back in January. No one wanted anything to do with the flyweight division. Like Dana didn't want anything to do with it, and then for Figueiredo to come in and he's made it electric again. So I think it would have been if he did win against Brandon Moreno, I would have had him easily. But because he was a draw and he did that horrible nut shot, I have to sort of take it away from him in that sense. So for me, for the rise of it, from when he had his first fight in July to where he is
No.
now.
Fuck off.
Where
Fuck
he
off.
is now.
No.
Khamzat Chimaev.
That's
He's only
ridiculous.
fought three fights and potentially not even against big names, but the way he's got the UFC community buzzing, his dirty little rat lip, the way he strikes, the way he wrestles, he's
He sings as well.
He's the fighter of the year for me.
That's ridiculous. That's absolutely scandalous. I've never heard something as scandalous in my life.
I've heard these words
Wait
before.
Just wait.
Go on then, Jimbo Slice. Tell me what yours is.
It is one of my favourite fighters. Unfortunately, it's not Jeremy Stephens. If Jeremy Stephens did a great knockout, it would be Jeremy Stephens. But no, he's fought once and got knocked out. I've gone for a man who has fought twice this year.
Royval.
I have gone for a man who 5 years ago was on the brink of being cut by the UFC.
Oh, God.
I have gone for a man who is now the UFC light heavyweight champion.
Ridiculous.
How is this ridiculous? This is a man who's actually fought top-ranked people. Kevin Holland's fought no one who's ranked. Khamzat Chimaev's fought no one who's ranked. He knocked out Corey Anderson, who was ranked. Was he ranked 3rd or 4th? And then he beat Dominic Reyes and handedly beat him. This is a man who fought twice, rode off into the sunset, had a child, and he's winning in life, isn't he? Let's be honest.
Nah,
he can't come back to that. He's actually done something decent this year, unlike both of your picks.
I can respect
beat
it. 2
people. Did he beat John Jones? Did he beat the real light heavyweight champion of the UFC? No.
He beat the man who beat John Jones.
Dominic Reyes did beat John Jones.
He's fought 2 people who are ranked in the top 5 and beaten both.
That's fucking ridiculous. So's
Comes up.
So someone else. You know what I mean? Somebody else has as well. I can't think. That was Israel Adesanya. Why didn't Israel Adesanya?
He barely beat Yoel Romero. He barely beat him.
Ridiculous.
He arguably even lost to Yoel Romero because if he scored 10 rounds. Yeah. This is a man and he won performance of the night in both the fights he did.
Yeah. To be fair, I was really struggling for this category, because no one has really fought that many times or done anything really spectacular this year that makes you stand out. And I agree with you, KDiggy. Had Big Fig won against Moreno earlier this month, I'd have probably picked him. But the fact that he drew just clinched it, took it away from his hands at the 11th hour. But no, I respect your pick, Jimbo. I think you're fucking living in banana land, KDiggy. To be quite honest,
I'm the fighter of the year. He is not just a UFC. He's not an MMA fighter. But we forgot to mention the real fighter of the year, Jake Paul.
Oh yeah.
On that
to be fair to you, KDiggy, had the Edwards fight happened and he'd beaten Edwards, I'd have given you that. But how can you have a guy that is your fighter of the year? Bear with me. I'm doing some stats.
I agree with you, mate. It's just been a rough year for this category. I feel like this is usually the easiest category of the year.
Gerald GM3 is last person he beat. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's had 12 fights in the UFC. 6 of them are losses. Reese McKee has fought twice in the UFC and lost both fights.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got John Phillips, who's had 6 fights in the UFC and has lost 5 of them. So you mean to tell me that a geezer who's got a record in the UFC against other people, so the people cumulative record is 7 wins, 13 losses, and they're fighter of the year? That's like saying fucking Anthony Joshua will be fighter of the year when he had like his 5th fight as a professional boxer. You live in banana land, mate. You're a clown.
You just might have done.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm taking Mike Perry off. I'm taking Mike Perry off my list of clowns of the year, and I'm putting you in there. You're a clown, mate. You're an absolute clown.
I love it, mate. I've heard this all before, and they come crawling back. Should we wrap it up there, lads?
Yeah, well, it's been a beautiful year, a really good year for the UFC, and hopefully the Smash Bros will make a splash in the new year, and we'll get more than one listener. But
or any
have a
subscribers.
good Christmas, have a safe holidays, and we'll speak in the new year.
Cheers, fellas.
So long.